Andy Lou. Happy holidays, my friend.
Happy holidays. Happy holidays, sir.
Are you a holiday guy or are you just a Grinch?
Dude, I've never been a holiday guy. I've always been indifferent to the holidays. I've actually traveled to Asia during the holidays, but this year I'm the Grinch. This year I'm the Grinch because every single Bay Area team is miserable, so I'm unhappy. Risa says I am the biggest Grinch in the world. Let's say, hey, look, man. Look, Steph's out. The Giants are the Giants. We'll get to them. And the Niners are the best
Niners
team.
are good. At least you
Niners
got that.
I'm always angry about the Niners. I'm always angry. And the fact is, now I have nothing but the Niners left. You know what I mean? Until Steph gets back in a week here or 2 weeks. So, we'll keep living with Brock Purdy.
Save me, Christian McCaffrey. Save me.
I'm going to the game on Saturday. So if any of the listeners listen here and are going to be at the game, drink some beers. I'm going to run of the Light Years Goons tailgates. I don't know his name, but he just
let me know how many people come up to you and say, I have a problem with what you say about James Wiseman.
What a segue.
All right, so we're recording this a day after the Warriors 143-113 loss to the Brooklyn Nets, 1-5 road trip. Obviously, the biggest note from the road trip is Steph Curry got hurt. Probably wouldn't have gone 1-5 if Steph played. Definitely wouldn't have had those two disgusting, disappointing losses in New York with 30-plus point margins if Steph played. At least one hopes. And I don't know, do we want to talk about that real quick before we get to it? Because I feel like this homestand will be season-defining.
Yeah, correct.
But before we get to that, Wiseman, 30 points in Brooklyn. You got any thoughts?
Set me up.
I'm throwing you a terrible post-entry pass, just like the Warriors apparently do.
Just like the Warriors. Look, it's good that he scored 30 points. That's pretty cool for a guy that has Kuminga ever scored 30 points? Has
Summer League?
Yeah, right. Has any of the Warriors young guys ever scored? McCall, Jordan Bell, any of those guys ever scored 30 points? So
Kuminga had 26 in a game last year. I think that was his high. But
who did?
Kuminga.
Oh, okay.
But your point stands. That's kind of the point. Yeah.
He is a offensive minded big man. I think it's cool that he's got to score that many. I'm sure he was very happy about it. He was sent in the G League for a long time and came back and got to do that, right? So I thought all that was pretty cool. It's good to see him succeed in that level. But if anybody tries to tell me that those 30 points mean that the Warriors are set up for success with Wiseman this season, we all know that's wrong, right? So I don't, we spent a lot of our last shows kind of talking about Wiseman, but that's that only thought is that if you think those 30 points is a good thing for the Warriors this season and it's going to be impactful, obviously incorrect. But I thought it was cool that he scored that many, right? Just good for him. But for the Warriors, I don't think it means anything in the long term.
Yeah, let's see if he builds confidence off it and it translates to game that matters. End of the day, when he was subbed in, they were already down 21 points. It was open run. The Nets were up 30 in the first quarter. He showed off the physical ability that made him a top 5 pick in what was essentially open run. A lot of really athletic plays with no one playing defense. Let's see if he can manifest this into, some positive momentum in games that are hopefully going to be more competitive going forward. Yeah. That's really my only takeaway from it. Otherwise, it doesn't really tell me anything. He looks physically good. We knew that. Okay, let's get to what I actually wanted to talk about here, which is I don't really want to dwell on this road trip any longer than we have to. They lost Steph. We don't know when he's coming back. What is interesting, though, is the Warriors have their largest homestand of the year coming up, 8 straight games, and not just 8 straight games at home, 8 games over 3 weeks. So they got a lot of cushion in this schedule. And then to add to it, majority of the teams they're playing are bad. I mean, Memphis on Christmas, yeah, they're probably going to lose that one without Steph. Although you never know, home game on Christmas, some guys can get up. You might get a big, we expect Wiggins back. You might get Clay up for this game with a 5-day break. We know he shoots better when he has a longer break. Draymond, national TV. I remember during that awful year where Steph broke his hand, the one Draymond game was Christmas, where he's just like,
Houston.
Man, we're not going to win anything this year, but I just want to win this one.
We're winning
just
this
one
game.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like you never know, but like you look at the schedule, they are at home from today, the 22nd. They don't go on the road again until Thursday, January 12th. That's 3 weeks at home with a lot of teams coming in. If Steph was playing, I would say they go 7-1, and this is really the span where they catapult themselves into, getting out of the play-in range. They're like firmly back into it. Obviously now this is more about like they need to get from 15-18 to hopefully around 500 when Steph comes back to make their run. So it's a little disappointing, but it is what it is. You look at the schedule, Andy, and what's your initial thought? You see Memphis, Charlotte, Utah, Portland, Atlanta, who's in turmoil, Detroit, who's straight up, tank for Wembanyama. Orlando, who's kind of tricky, but they are a young team going cross country. And then Phoenix. Those are all home games, one back-to-back. A lot of these games have 2 to 3 days off. I mean, it's really set up for the Warriors to kind of get the positive vibes back. What would you consider success over this 8 games?
So the one thing that jumps out at me is one back-to-back. Has it felt like the Warriors have played like 16 back-to-backs and they've had like 4 schedule losses already? Look, life isn't fair, but that's a huge reason why the Warriors are a lot shakier than maybe the record shows. More shaky with the record than what they've shown.
Yeah, then they're resting guys.
Yeah. So I think that's been tough. 2 gimme games is what that schedule looks to me. 2 gimme games. Detroit is a gimme game. Charlotte is a gimme game at the front end of the back-to-back. Warriors going to win both games. If you don't, we got bigger issues, whatever. But they win both of those games. So that gives you 6 other games. Can the Warriors go 500 in these 6 other games outside of the 2 gimme ones? Because you could tell me Atlanta's a mess. You can tell me Portland's whatever. You can tell me Orlando's whatever. But those are going to be wars. Like I don't see the Warriors winning any of those games by 15 points unless they go out there and play really, really well. And we haven't seen that at all this season.
Or we get a great news on the Steph front, and he's back on the 1st of January, which it sounds like he's probably going to be back at the end of the homestand going onto the road.
Can he make it to that Phoenix game? Maybe they can win that one. That'd be really cool, right? Like maybe they win. Maybe they go, 5-2 or 4-3 or something, and then they can finish out that homestand with the win with Steph back in Phoenix, and then they can go on their way. And by the way, they play San Antonio, Chicago, and Washington on the road after this home stretch, so it's even more winnable games. You got 3 more winnable games after this homestand, right? But I'm saying they need to go 5-3. They need to have a winning record. Also, I think mentally, this home stretch requires them to tread water and just to play a lot better. I do think if Steph wasn't hurt, they may go 7-1, Sam, but do they? And I do think like so much of it was built upon the back of, hey, how great is Steph going to be? I do think this requires them to say, Jordan Poole, you got to play better. Klay Thompson, stop playing like an idiot. Draymond Green, let's not get kicked out of games every other game, and let's try to be, the guy that you are when you get to play next to Steph, right? I think it does force those guys to play better. And I think that is good for the Warriors long term. But like you said, if it doesn't work out and they go 1-7, the season's probably over. But the schedule
that would be the worst case scenario. Don't even put that. I mean, I agree with you. I think 5-3 should be the goal. Anything above that, thrilled. Anything below it will be disappointing. If they go 5-3, they're 20-21 with Steph probably returning. Mm-hmm. It's official halfway point of the season. Disappointing, but when you look at the rest of the West standings, absolutely not out of it. They're very much in the mix. If they had the worst case scenario where they go 1-7, or let's say 2-6, 2-6 is probably a worst case scenario that could happen. Now they're 17-24, and that's a lot of work to get out of that hole. It doesn't sound like a big deal, but it kind of is. So to me, I'm looking at this, Jordan Poole, Clay, Draymond. It comes back to those three. They kind of have to set the tone. You have a very favorable schedule, one back-to-back, a lot of games with multiple days off. I mean, they're going to play on the 30th, and then they don't play again until the 2nd. They're going to get 3 days off there. They're playing the 4th. They don't play till the 7th, and again, not till the 10th. There's a lot of time for Steve Kerr to get practice in there, or more importantly for the veterans, just to get a little rest in there and to kind of get moving forward and kind of get some positive momentum going. Because I really do think Bob Myers had an interesting interview yesterday. I really do think this segment of the season with Steph's return will determine if they are buyers or sellers at the trade deadline. I really think it's that simple. Nothing is happening trade-wise before kind of the end of the month. That's just kind of how it goes. I think if the Warriors have a successful homestand, get Steph back, and go on a run, they're going to force ownership to make a tough call because unlike last year, they're very obviously in need of some help. Last year, I thought they needed help also, but you could make the case that they didn't, and obviously the result showed that they didn't, right? This year, they can make that you can make a case that they need some help, and
it is obvious they do. It is obvious.
Yeah, I think the only way they're going to get it from management is if this team is sitting at that 6, 7, 8 range, and they clearly have something, but they don't have enough. So it forces management to go for it. Whereas, if they keep falling apart, can you really fault Bob Myers or Joe Lacob for not going all in if they're 17-24 and they're the 11 seed? Like, doesn't it feel smarter if you're there, like just pack it up and play for the next year?
I don't know. It's a tough question because I think you could still make an argument that even if they do drop out, now 1-7 is tough. I mean, 1-7 puts them like 10 games under 500. But like you can argue that can they get into the I would still make moves if it means that you can get into the play-in round. I mean, the team has shown those veteran guys have shown that they're good enough to win. So like I don't think giving up is an option. Obviously, it is for them because they got to worry about tax bills and all that. It's not for me to worry about. But I would say, like, regardless of what happens on this homestand and moving forward, as long as you're within range of the plan, which if you look at the West standings, I mean, everybody outside, like the Warriors are 10th or 11th. There's nobody behind them that are going to surpass them. Like we were thinking maybe the Lakers, but AD might be done for the season, dude. Like we have no idea how long when he's going to come back.
1 month before even reevaluated, which almost always means 2 months before he's on the court.
And the thing is, like, when he comes back, it's his foot. Like, we're not talking about AD's left shoulder. Like, we're talking about a guy that already has issues, and he's going to have to come back and play at 150% just for the Lakers to have a chance. So, if you look at the West standings, there's nobody beneath the Warriors that I think are going to jump them, right? So, I think not regardless of what happens in the next few weeks, but they need to make a move anyway. Like, they need to make a move anyway, in my opinion. I don't think they get let off the hook because this team doesn't do so well in the next few weeks. You got to put something together. If you get in the plan, I'm not saying anything can happen, meaning like they could still lose. They could still lose their playing team and get out of there, but it's still worth it. You can't just punt a season with Steph. We've talked about this ad nauseum. You just can't.
I mean, he's playing like unanimous MVP. I mean, he kind of always is these days, but like he's playing as well as anyone. He's one of 5 guys who's good enough to be the best player in a title team. Bob Myers said this yesterday on 95.7 The Game. Will the Warriors make a move before the trade deadline on February 9th? I think at some point soon in the next few weeks, we'll have to decide what the answer to that question is. Such a politician. I think that ties to what my question, though. It's like, this homestand and Steph's return will define what management wants to do. Any way you put it. Like, I don't like the answer, but if they are still the 12 seed come January 25th, ownership could easily look at that and be like, we need to shed salary to save tax bill. We're not winning. We might as well trade someone to save some money. On the flip side, if they look good, ownership can go, we need to make a trade that makes us better because we have a chance to get 16 home games in the playoffs and pay that whole tax bill. You know,
Yeah.
like I hate to say it's all about the money, but it kind of is. They're not running a $200 million tax bill to be the 11 seed and not even get any sort of playoff revenue.
But
They're either going to go all in or they're going to go the other way. And
here's the thing. Here's the thing I will push. Here's the thing I will push back with ownership is I'm looking at the West standings right now, and it's Rockets, Spurs, Thunder at randomly 14 and 18, so they're right with the Warriors. But how before long, how much do we think they're going to realistically keep trying to win games, right? And then you've got the Lakers. Those are the bottom 4 teams of the Western Conference. The Warriors are the 5th. they are the 5th team from the bottom, right? And then above them, you've got the Timberwolves, the Mavs, the Jazz, the Blazers, and the Kings. So those are another 5 teams there that I think if you're the Warriors, you're saying, even without Steph, are we not in that tier or just better than them? You're telling me they're not better than the Wolves or the Jazz or the Blazers? Now, Clippers, Suns, Pelicans, Grizz, Nuggets, I'll give you those. Like those, I don't think the Warriors can get there, especially if they go like 3-5 or 2-6 in this homestand. But I would say even if you are within 3 games of the 9 seed or the 8 seed after this stretch, 3 games doesn't preclude you from going all in and trading guys and getting good players. Yeah. So, and I think they're going to be in that range unless they go something ridiculous. 1-7 is just what I'm trying to say.
Or the worst case scenario, some of the vets start having more physical setbacks. That's the other thing that could play into this. What if Draymond
so hard
has a thing? Yeah. And that gets back to why having a thin roster with a bunch of projects sets you up in a tough position. But I agree with you. From a numerical standpoint, it's hard to not see them in it come the trade deadline. It's a question of how much they feel like they're in it. To me, the biggest way you could put pressure on the front office is if they go on a run. If they go on a run, you're going to look Steph Curry and Draymond in the face when they are, let's just say, the 7th seed come January 20th, but they're 3 games back of the 4 seed. So they're right there. They just need literally their bench solidified. You're going to look them in the face and be like, nah, we're good. I know you guys won a title last year with just some vet help, but we're good. We're going to stay out of it. So that's why I really do think this next month will define everything. Like Bob Myers, his quote is, again, he's a politician. He's saying it the way he has to, but it's like kind of fair or not. They're going to have to make the case here because I think I feel here's my prediction. There's 0 chance that they get through the deadline without making a move. It's just a question if it's going to be a move to go all in or a move to go the other way.
So let's get into that then. What's the move all in? And all in move we talked about a million times. What's the move the other way?
There's a few ways you can go about it. The most obvious one would be trading Draymond. Find someone who wants him and get salary cap relief for future picks. One, I don't even like to talk about that, but like if you're looking to save tax money, moving Dante DiVincenzo is it like a tangible tax saving move? It's trading Draymond's $25 million contract and getting back only 5,
Well,
that's a move. That's a move. Like you're officially saying we're not doing anything this season.
Forever, by the way, forever. You're not talking about just season. You're talking about next season. And the way this is brought up because this was brought up on NBC Sports with Monty Poole and Kareth Burke, right?
Friends of the show. And this is why it's brought up. It's not you and I didn't bring this up, right? It was brought up by them and just common sense.
Well, in my opinion, it's brought up because somebody told him. Like it wasn't Monty didn't just say, "Oh, let's just talk about them trading Draymond."
Let's ruin everyone. Monty's like, "I'm a bigger Grinch than Andy. I'm going to ruin everyone's Christmas."
Exactly. Like he's not Monty's. He knows what's going on, and Kareth, same thing. Like they're not just throwing this shit out there because they want to generate content. This was thrown out there because somebody put it in their ear. Whether it be Bob or Steve or someone more lower level, Ken, as Fitz likes to talk to. So I
his
think,
text buddy.
Yeah. His text buddy. By the way, he's getting worse. And anytime the team gets like it's not like they're a lottery team. I actually kind of enjoy Fitz when they're a lottery team. It's not that bad, but it's when he's trying to sell stuff. That's when anyway. I just think this conversation is brought up because somebody threw it out there, and trading Draymond and Clay, to your point, maybe is realistic. I would think it's extremely unfair to Steph because if you're trading Draymond, he still has so much value to the Warriors and winning a championship that you're basically throwing in the towel, not just for this season, but for next.
I'm playing devil's advocate here because I don't believe this. What if I tell you trading Draymond gets you assets that makes it easier for you to get the right replacement for him in the offseason next year?
So you're telling me that trading Draymond is going to net me Pascal Siakam in the offseason, but because that's the perfect fit, and that's the player that the Raptors are probably going to trade. They're a mess.
Sure.
You have to, though. You have to know. Or it's not you can't have it done in the season, but you have to know like 75%, in a backroom talk with Masai Ujiri, you've got to be like, hey, you like Wiseman?
Ben Simmons.
Right. We had this conversation where I really like, but by the way, he's been playing better. So good for him. But
he had Jordan Poole in hell.
Yeah.
I mean, for the 5 minutes of the game that was competitive.
Siakam's the guy, not Ben Simmons. Siakam's the guy that you need if you're going to replace Draymond. So you're going to have to tell me that, hey, I know Ujiri likes Wiseman. I know he likes Kuminga. Right, I know he likes these guys, and I have an inkling that he's going to want to make that trade, and Pascal is available, and that we'd be at the front and center of that conversation. But if you don't know that, how the hell are you going to make that trade? How are you going to make that Draymond?
Even in my scenario, you're dumping Draymond to get some picks, which you're basically saying the season's over, but we have all this stuff to go into the offseason and go get the guy we want and have a better roster next year. I don't like that personally. I would prefer them just find a way to get like Pirtle or someone to like give you a little more depth and just go for it with what you have. But that's kind of if I was to sell you on a scenario which they go the other way involves probably moving Draymond, cutting your tax bill like way in half, getting some future assets, and then looking at your roster in the offseason, being like, it's a new day with the Warriors with a different roster. That's what going the other way would look like to me.
It's also a bullshit scenario because they just won a championship with these same guys. Now, if you told me the Warriors lost in the second round to Memphis last season, I'm all ears. Like, I'm looking at you, I'm saying,
right, they hit a ceiling. You're like, we need to do better. Okay.
It's not going to work. Like, it's not going to work. Draymond's not good enough. Fine. But we just saw them win it all. And so I think, yeah, sure, would I like Siakam? But, dude, I know that the Warriors top 6 and 7 are good enough to win a title. So why the hell are we messing around? If it's a tax thing, then Wiseman's making $12 million next season. Dump him. You know what I mean? Like,
to your point, the Warriors starting lineup still has the best net rating in the NBA. So until we know that there's like a better 5-man group, the moves they should probably be looking to make are marginal moves to like not have Looney and Draymond running dead because they have to play 40 minutes a game in round one,
The difference between, I think, like how Bob Myers and Joe Lacob works and what Farhan Zaidi has done with the Giants, like, I think the Giants like doing marginal moves, and then the Warriors, like, they're not making a move unless it's like a massive, like, gamble, which is interesting.
My man, they really are. Should we just get to this? They really are kind of opposite organizations in positive and negative ways. Like, sure. How many times have we been like, why can't the Warriors just make a shrewd marginal move? And then with the Giants, it's like, okay, dude, you have a roster of Juan Toscano Andersons, like it's funny. I'll share this. Like, I know the Warriors have felt that they don't want to be the Giants. This was something that was said to me that when they were in that tanking year and they got Wiseman, they're like, we don't want to be the Giants where we have a bunch of old stars and nothing in the pipeline and we're a last place team. So kind of what the Giants were around 2018-19. I'm taking you back in time, that time. And so that's why they're so obsessed with the 2 timeline plan, because they don't want to be stuck in a situation like the Giants are right now. And I get it, but I'm looking at this. I'm like, you're not there yet. You don't have 34-year-old Crawford and Belt, doing something like that. You should be going for it a little more.
The Giants at that stage, and also as much as I love Brandon Crawford and Brandon Belt and even Buster Posey, those guys aren't even comparable to Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, and especially Steph Curry. Love Buster, right? He's won the MVP, but he is not even on the level of Steph in his sport. Like Steph is on the
Barry Bonds. Yeah. Barry Bonds is the closer comp.
It's the exactly. Even Mike Trout, who's one of the best players, and then Shohei's on his own kind of thing. But even like, let's say Aaron Judge, who just got X amount of 360 million, it's not even close to Steph Curry's level.
More of a Jokic.
Like it's such a different thing where the Giants, they had aging guys who were always good, above average players, but just not on the same level as Steph. So I'm with that. Also, totally different sport. I mean, just totally different sport where you just have guys that are so much more impactful with the Warriors just on a day-to-day level and game to game. I don't know. You want to talk about Correa for a little bit, or do we have some Warrior stuff? Because
Yeah. Let's get to it, because I do think it kind of, to your point, we can get annoyed with the Warriors all we want. No chance Joey Lightyears is having a Correa fiasco happen on his watch. I'll put it that way for sure. Man, we're now 2 days removed from it?
Yeah.
So like you've had a little time to marinate. Where are you at?
I think I've had two. Okay, you could count three. I was pretty young when the Giants lost the World Series in 2002, but here are the two worst moments in my Bay Area sports career. Number one is a 3-1 lead that the Warriors blew in the NBA Finals. Number two is each of the Super Bowls that the Niners lost, both of them with Harbaugh and Kyle Shanahan. To Patrick Mahomes.
The nature of them.
Joe Flacco was pretty bad. I mean, losing to Mahomes is fine, but losing to Joe Flacco was pretty bad. Those are the top two worst moments. This is number three. I mean, this is right up there. And to me, it's because the Giants told us that they were going to spend money. The Giants had a bunch of money to spend. The Giants signed the dude. They actually had the guy. If they had just not signed Correa and he went to the Twins, I actually wouldn't have been mad. I would have been like, fine. We knew that was coming. He's going to the Dodgers or whatever. But the Giants signed him. And then we find out that they never tried to renegotiate with Scott Boras, despite the fact that they said there was something wrong with the fiscal. We will never know what it is. I know maybe Sam sources will tell us what it is, but they never. And then on top of that,
per sources, the ankle, and by per sources, I mean I think 3 articles mentioned it yesterday. so not really. But.
And then nobody ever came out to tell us what it was, and now I don't care to blame Farhan Zaidi or the ownership. Like maybe it's one of them, maybe it's both of them, it's probably all of them. But dude, when you do this and you set the expectations and then you actually blow through the expectations and then you act like an amateur organization, you act like the Suns, right? You act something like that, or the Clippers when the dude was like, what are we doing here? I feel like I was watching a team that was 3 World Series championships, one of the top 5 teams in baseball, just in terms of name and value and all of that. And now it's like, man, I don't think they're the A's, Sam. I don't think they're the A's, but they are like a mid-tier organization at this point. Maybe like one of the lower tier organizations in baseball, which really sucks. It's like Cohen era Warriors when we were growing up rooting for them, like bottom tier organization, clown show, right? It's what it feels like.
Dude, and Scott Boras is out here just over and over again. Let's listen to this quote.
Oh boy.
They told you they were calling off the press conference?
We were all in the hotel in San Francisco. He had his parents there, his brother, his wife's parents. It was certainly a roller coaster for the Correa family.
Was he in the room with you, or you called him in his room?
I called him to my room, and
so he came into your room?
Yeah, he came into my room.
What was his reaction?
He was obviously surprised. As we all were, frankly. We're very surprised.
Oh, my
his
goodness.
Parents, his family. Scott Boras is a step away from crying, talking about how hard
this is
for Correa.
It's just levels. Best agent in the game. Whether you like him or dislike him, he's good at his job. Also, the Giants try to ruin the contract, and he finds another team to just give him $300 off the bat. Like, that's just amazing. But I can't think of ever seeing anything like this. It's to me, it seems like it was ownership. It seems like someone got cold feet and they tried to manufacture an excuse to get out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the sort of thing that has ripple effects. So, like, as annoying as everything with the Warriors is right now, I try to remember, it's like, hey, man, their reputation's still very good with players, and that's what matters. Now you wonder about the Giants, like, is Shohei as a free agent?
Yeah.
Would he? They were probably on the list if they get Correa and, they're doing some other stuff. Now it's like, no. It's like it's Mets, Yankees, Dodgers, a few other teams, that type of thing. And those are kind of, I guess when I think about the Warriors a little bit, like that's the other part I think about with their core. It's like, how do you do this in a way that doesn't like blow all your goodwill and turn into a complete tire fire like what's going on with the Giants?
Because I think like people have mentioned like Wiggins is eligible for trade coming up. And it's like, dude, if you trade Andrew Wiggins, by the way, they won't do this, but if you trade Andrew Wiggins, you understand what that looks like in the NBA circles, because not only did he sign a under market contract to play for you, right? And you just turn around and you like Bob Myers would never do that. We know that Bob Myers is a very good GM. And so just from that perspective, yeah, I'm with you. I hadn't thought about how the Giants, you made me more depressed. I hadn't thought about the Giants being screwed for the next 3 years. Yeah, because for me, it's like, it hurts right now. I wanted to go to Giants games, but you're right though. What does this mean for the next 4 years? Like, you're always going to get to sign guys like Haniger and Minaya and those guys, because those guys are injury guys and they need somewhere to go. So they're always going to go to the Giants. But how about the big dogs, right? And that's kind of what Correa,
the guys who have every option on the table in front of them. Yeah.
And those guys come up every year. There's Juan Soto coming up. There's like Shohei coming up. There's guys that pop up every year that are going to make 10 years, $300 million. But you're telling me the one guy, Correa, actually wanted to come here and you signed him, and then you pulled back at the last second. By the way, Scott Boras, just masterclass in narrative setting. Like Clutch, we think does a good job, but Scott Boras is just out here immediately saying, look, he was dressed, he was wearing a suit, his family was there. And it's funny to me that
flew out his 90-year-old grandma from Puerto Rico.
Just like crying, all that stuff. It is interesting that the Mets signed him for less, like 12 years, $315. Like it was less than $13,350. So that's interesting. But again, like the Twins offered him the same contract, right? So, and somebody mentioned this: the new guy, the new GM or the new front office guy that Farhan hired is a Houston Astros guy, right? He's a Houston. So it's like that guy would have probably told you if Carlos Correa had some weird issues with his ankle.
Like you don't want to offer him that because I know what those medicals look like because I was in Houston.
Like he's got to know.
That's why I think it's. That's why I really think it's an ownership thing, because it's like you can roll your eyes at Farhan and like being overly pragmatic with the margin stuff, but I don't think he's an idiot. I don't think he's offering this contract without thinking it through and then rescinding it immediately. Like he's not an amateur. This feels like an owner who's like
an amateur move.
Who's like, man, how much money? What? I don't want that anymore, without thinking about the consequences of what it means, because he's a billionaire and billionaires often think there are no consequences for their actions. Right.
That's a good way to put it. And these guys are way richer than Joe Lacob. Although, to be fair, like a lot of owners are a lot richer than Joe Lacob. Joe Lacob is not one of the most richest owners in the sports world. I mean, Steve Cohen this is nothing to him. Like Steve Cohen, this is a drop in the bucket for him. This is like when him negotiating contract is like me and you getting Chipotle for lunch. Like, well, it's just nothing to the guy. And I think that's what it feels like. It feels like long term the Warriors are the Giants are an amateur organization. So maybe that's what, as a Warriors fan, makes you feel better. Maybe that's like the Warriors aren't that, right? Like Joe Lacob isn't that. Which brings me, I guess, to the final piece is, damn man, is Jed York a good owner? Because I spent a lot of time in my career hating Jed York, but he's now figured out Kyle Shanahan's the man. So
the OOs and early 10s were not good to Jed, but he figured it out. He hired the right coach, and he just he lets him take all the bullets from the media. Every few months, it's like, what is Kyle doing? No one's ever like, what's Jed doing? Just eating at French Laundry, living his life.
Jed's not, and Kyle's figured it out. Dude, Kyle has figured it out. He's 10-4, and the Niners might be the most consistent, stable team in the. I don't know. It's And the other thing that's you talked about ownership. The other thing that's problematic is like Farhan's is the one taking all the hits. Like he's the one that's just out here because he's public facing. None of the Giants ownership team has come out and said anything.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
It feels like it's what they want too. It's like we hired you to be the bad guy.
That's
I'll be there. I'll be there when we sign guys so I can get the smiles. But you get to do the bad guy thing. And
why would he stay? Is the question. Is like why would he? What's the long term? What's the point of if I were Farhan Zaidi? Like I guess he gets paid a lot of money, but
yeah, and there's only a few of these jobs out there. It's not like he can just go. It's not like the Dodgers GM job is reopened or something like that.
Well, Houston let their guy go, right? Houston they won a World Series and but yeah, you're right. I guess there was an assumption that Farhan was going to get a bunch of leeway to use the money, but it's tough, dude. And as a Giants fan, like baseball's 162 games. That's a lot of games that you have now turned the interest off. A lot of people. Like who's going to get
a lot of JD Davis? Yeah, it's like Correa wasn't about to win 100 games by himself, but at least it's something to watch.
I would have been okay with 88 wins next season. Like and then the Giants might still win. I mean, they're not bad. Like they might still win 80 games, but who the hell is watching the Giants? Anyway.
All right. Well, hope you have good holidays. Happy holidays to all our listeners. We will be back after the Christmas game, probably the next day. Let's be real. We're probably not going live on Christmas evening. Appreciate everyone for subscribing.